The call came in at 4:47 a.m. on March 3, 2021. Gunshots in the Hoh River Valley. Multiple rounds, high caliber, echo pattern suggesting at least 3 shooters. I was already awake, watching fog roll through the Sitka spruce from my cabin window, coffee in hand. Sleep had become difficult lately. My name is Thomas Waite, former senior ranger for Olympic National Park, Washington State. 26 years of service. Decorated twice for search and rescue operations. Clean record until the incident I'm about to describe. I took the call, grabbed my gear, and headed into the darkness. Standard response protocol for suspected poaching. What I didn't know was that by sunrise, I would have to choose between my career and my conscience. Between the law I'd sworn to uphold and a truth that would make me an outcast from everything I'd built. The Hoh is one of the wettest places in North America. 12 feet of rain annually. Temperate rainforest so dense it feels prehistoric. Moss hangs from branches like frozen waterfalls. Everything is green, dripping, alive. It's also remote enough that illegal hunting happens more often than the public knows. I drove the fire road as far as I could, then started walking. The shots had stopped, but I could smell gunpowder on the wet air. I'd been tracking poachers in Olympic for 5 years. Deer mostly, sometimes elk, occasionally black bear. The pattern was always the same. Weekend hunters from Seattle or Tacoma, looking for trophy kills without tags, willing to risk fines for bragging rights. But this felt different. The shots had been too close together, too frantic. That wasn't the careful spacing of hunters taking aim. That was panic fire. Something had gone wrong. I followed the old mining trail up into the valley, moving by headlamp through pre-dawn darkness. The forest was silent. No owls, no night birds, nothing. Just the sound of water dripping from 1,000 surfaces and my boots squelching through mud. I found the first blood at 5:23 a.m. It was sprayed across the bark of a western red cedar, dark and still warm. Too much blood. Whatever had been hit was badly injured or already dead. I photographed it, marked the location on my GPS, and kept moving. 50 yards further, I found the spent casings. 7 of them. .308 Winchester, brass still shiny. Professional rounds, not the cheap stuff weekend poachers use. I bagged them as evidence. The blood trail led up slope toward a small clearing I knew well, a natural meadow beside a creek, popular with elk during calving season. But it was early March. Too early for elk to be there. That's when I heard voices. 3 men, arguing in harsh whispers. I killed my headlamp and moved forward carefully, using the massive tree trunks for cover. Dawn was just beginning to gray the eastern sky. Enough light to see shapes but not details. They were standing around something on the ground. Something large. Told you to wait for a clear shot, one was saying. Male, 40s, expensive hunting jacket. It charged us. What was I supposed to do? Younger voice. Scared. Shut up, both of you. Third voice, authoritative. We need to document this and get out before any rangers show up. I moved closer, positioning myself behind a nurse log covered in sword fern. From there, I could see what they were standing over. My first thought was, bear. Massive brown bear, maybe 800 pounds. But the proportions were wrong. The limbs too long. And then one of the men shifted position and I saw the hand. 5 fingers. Opposable thumb. Palm facing upward. Fingers slightly curled. Not a bear. The man with the authoritative voice, gray hair, late 50s, holding an expensive camera with a telephoto lens, was taking photographs from multiple angles. This is incredible. Do you understand what we've found? This is Nobel Prize material. This changes everything we know about hominid evolution. It's still moving, the younger one said. Jesus Christ, it's still breathing. I stood up, drawing my weapon. Federal Rangers, nobody move. All 3 spun toward me. The younger one still had his rifle in his hands, a Remington 700 with a high-powered scope. The other 2 were armed but had set their weapons against a tree. Drop the rifle. Now. He complied, hands shaking. Ranger, you don't understand. I understand you're hunting in a national park without permits, using illegal caliber weapons, and you've shot something. That's all I need to understand. The gray-haired man stepped forward, hands visible but confident. Ranger? Wait, is it? I recognize you from the park newsletters. I'm Dr. Richard Sterling, University of Washington, Department of Anthropology. We have research permits. Not for hunting, you don't. We weren't hunting. We were documenting. It attacked us. We fired in self-defense. I moved closer, keeping my weapon trained but my finger off the trigger. I needed to see what they'd shot. The creature was lying on its side, chest rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. 7 feet tall at minimum, covered in dark brown hair matted now with blood from multiple wounds. Shoulder, abdomen, thigh. The face was, I still struggle with adequate words, humanoid but distinctly not human. Heavy brow ridge, flat nose, pronounced jaw, and the eyes, half closed now, clouded with pain, were deeply, disturbingly aware. It was dying. How long ago did you shoot it? I asked, still holding position behind my sight line. 45 minutes, Sterling said. We were documenting vocalizations when it emerged from the tree line. We think it was investigating our equipment. So you shot it 7 times? It was coming toward us. We had no choice. I looked at the wounds. The pattern told a different story. These weren't defensive shots. Tight grouping, center mass, textbook kill placement. These were execution shots. Someone had been trying to bring it down hard and fast. Step away from it. All of you. Hands where I can see them. They complied, moving back toward the tree line. I approached the creature slowly, holstering my weapon once I was certain none of the men were an immediate threat. Up close, the details were extraordinary. The hands, I couldn't stop thinking of them as hands, had clearly defined fingerprints. The feet were massive but structurally similar to human feet, with a separated big toe that suggested both bipedal locomotion and climbing ability. The musculature was dense, powerful, built for a life in steep terrain and heavy forest, but it was the breathing that broke me. Each inhale was a struggle, wet and rattling, pneumothorax probably, a collapsed lung from the chest wound. Without immediate medical intervention, it would die within the hour. I keyed my radio. Dispatch Ranger Wait. I need emergency veterinary response, Olympic National Park headquarters. Large mammal, multiple gunshot wounds, critical condition. Sterling spoke up immediately. Ranger, before you do that, you need to understand what this is. This isn't just some bear or elk. This is an undocumented species, possibly a surviving population of Gigantopithecus or a Homo heidelbergensis descendant. The scientific implications. I don't care about your scientific implications. This is a living creature, and it's suffering. Exactly. And any veterinarian you bring up here will have to report this. Within hours, this location will be swarmed with media, federal authorities, possibly military. Is that what you want? I paused, hand still on my radio. He was right, of course. The moment I called this in officially, everything would spiral out of my control. Dispatch Wait. Delay that last request. I need to assess the situation further. I looked back at the creature. Its eyes had opened slightly, focusing on me with obvious effort. There was something in that gaze, not just pain but comprehension. It knew it was dying, and it knew I was the one deciding what happened next. What's your plan here, Dr. Sterling? Document it while it dies? Harvest tissue samples? Load the body into your truck and drive it to your lab? We take it to the university. We provide the proof that the scientific community has been demanding for decades. You profit from it, I interrupted. Book deals, speaking tours, your name in textbooks. His face hardened. You're being naive, Ranger. This discovery belongs to science, to humanity. You can't possibly consider hiding something of this magnitude. The younger hunter spoke up, voice breaking. Can't we just help it? Get a doctor or something? It's not human, Sterling said sharply. We can't take it to a hospital. But it's not an animal either, I said quietly. Look at it. Really look at it. For a moment, no one spoke. The creature's breathing was getting shallower, more erratic. Blood pooled beneath it, soaking into the moss and ferns. I made a decision then that would cost me everything. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You 3 are going to pack up your equipment, walk back to your vehicle and drive out of this park. You're going to forget this location, forget what you saw, and never come back. You can't be serious, Sterling said. I'm completely serious. This is a federal park. I have authority to detain you for poaching, illegal weapons discharge, and criminal trespass, or you can leave now. We'll report this. I'll file complaints with your supervisor. You'll do whatever you need to do, Dr. Sterling. But right now, you're leaving. The 3 men looked at each other. The younger one seemed relieved. The second hunter, middle-aged, face pale, just nodded. But Sterling's expression was pure calculation. You're making a mistake, Ranger Wait. A career-ending mistake. Probably. Now get out of my park. I watched them disappear down the trail, Sterling looking back twice with an expression that promised consequences. Once I was certain they were gone, I knelt beside the creature. "I don't know if you can understand me," I said quietly, "but I'm going to try to help you." The eyes focused on my face. One hand, I couldn't think of it as anything else, moved slightly, fingers curling in what might have been acknowledgement. I had a trauma kit in my pack, designed for human injuries but potentially adaptable. I also had my personal cell phone, with one number programmed that I'd hoped never to use. Dr. Sarah Chen, wildlife veterinarian, former Park Service, now running a private practice in Port Angeles. We'd worked together years ago on an injured cougar rescue. She was brilliant, discreet, and, crucially, she'd always been quietly open-minded about unexplained phenomena in the Olympics. I dialed. She answered on the third ring, groggy. "Tom, it's 6 a.m. Sarah, I need your help. Off the books. No questions until you get here." A pause. "How far off the books?" "Career ending if anyone finds out." Another pause. Longer. "Location?" I gave her coordinates. "Bring trauma supplies, antibiotics, tranquilizers, everything you'd need for a critical large mammal case. And Sarah, come alone." "Tom, what did you find?" "Something that's not supposed to exist. And it's dying. I'll be there in 40 minutes. I hung up and returned my attention to the creature. The bleeding had slowed. Not a good sign, actually. It suggested dropping blood pressure, failing organs. I cut away the hair around the worst wounds with my knife, carefully trying not to cause additional pain. The chest wound was catastrophic. Entry hole the size of a quarter, exit wound twice that. The round had gone straight through, probably shredding lung tissue. Each breath produced a small bloody froth at the corners of its mouth. I applied pressure bandages knowing it was inadequate but needing to do something. The creature watched me work, never flinching, never making a sound. The stoicism was heartbreaking. "You've been hiding here all this time," I said, working by instinct now, filling the silence with words. "How many of you? Dozens? Hundreds? Successfully avoiding humans for thousands of years. And then 3 idiots with rifles decide they need to prove you're real." A sound emerged from deep in its chest. Not quite a groan, more like a vocalization with meaning I couldn't interpret. Communication. It was trying to communicate. I sat back on my heels looking at this impossible being. Everything about it defied my understanding of the natural world. And yet here it was, bleeding, and real, and aware. My radio crackled. "Wait, this is Station Chief Morrison. Report status. We've had a complaint filed by a Dr. Richard Sterling claiming you interfered with legitimate research and made threats. I need you to return to headquarters immediately." I looked at the creature, at those intelligent, fading eyes. "Negative, Chief. I'm tracking a wounded animal. It's going to take several more hours. We'll report when I'm back in range." "That's an order, Ranger. Return now. Radio conditions are deteriorating." "Say again?" "Chief, you're breaking up." I turned off my radio. 35 minutes later, I heard footsteps on the trail. Sarah emerged into the clearing, medical bag over her shoulder, wearing hiking boots and a fleece jacket hastily pulled over pajamas. She stopped when she saw what I was kneeling beside. "Oh my God, can you help it?" She approached slowly, professional instincts overriding shock, knelt beside me, put her fingers against the creature's neck, feeling for a pulse. Thready, maybe 40 beats per minute. That's not good. "Tom, what is this?" "I don't know, but it's alive and it's dying and we're the only chance it has." She opened her medical bag. "Okay, let's work." Sarah worked with the focused intensity I remembered from our years together in the Park Service. She established an IV line, difficult in a patient with anatomy we were guessing at, and started fluids with broad-spectrum antibiotics. The chest wound required emergency intervention. "I need to seal the pneumothorax," she said. "But I don't know the lung structure. If I go in wrong, I could kill it." "Best guess based on what you know?" "It's hominid. Probably similar thoracic structure to humans, but probably isn't good enough for surgery." The creature made another sound. Softer now, weaker. Its eyes were closing. "We're losing it," Sarah said. "Tom, I need to make a choice now." "Then make it. Do what you think is right." She prepped the wound site, administered local anesthetic, hoping it would work cross-species, and made the intervention. Inserted a chest tube, sealed the wound, watched for response. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the creature's breathing eased, deepened slightly. Color, what we could see through the hair, improved marginally. "It's working," Sarah breathed. "Oh my God, it's actually working." We spent the next hour stabilizing, cleaning wounds, administering pain medication based on estimated body weight. Sarah was amazing. Calm, methodical, treating this patient with the same care she'd give any suffering animal. Around 8 a.m., my radio crackled again despite being turned off. Morrison's voice angry now. "Wait, I have federal agents en route to your last known location. Dr. Sterling has made serious allegations. You need to return immediately or you will be considered in violation of direct orders." Sarah looked at me. "Tom, what did you do?" "I sent away 3 poachers who shot this creature and wanted to harvest it for research. One of them is apparently well-connected." "How well-connected?" "University professor. Probably has contacts at Fish and Wildlife, maybe higher." "So what happens now?" I looked at the creature. "Stable now, but still critical. I need to move it somewhere safe, somewhere it can recover without being found." "Tom, that's insane. This thing needs days of care. IV antibiotics, wound monitoring, physical therapy probably. You can't just hide it in the forest. Do you have a better idea?" She was quiet for a long moment. "There's a cabin. Old research station about 6 miles northwest of here, deep in the backcountry. Officially decommissioned, but still maintained. I have keys from my Park Service days." "Why do you still have keys to a decommissioned station?" "Because I sometimes need to treat animals without paperwork and permits. Don't judge me." I almost smiled. "Can we move it?" "Not far. Not safely. But 6 miles, maybe, if we go slow and I monitor vitals the whole way." The decision was made. We constructed a travois using my emergency tarp and sturdy branches, padded with everything soft we had. The creature was conscious but weak, watching us with those extraordinary eyes. When we carefully moved it onto the travois, it made a sound, questioning, uncertain, but didn't resist. "I know this hurts," I said, "but we're trying to help. Do you understand?" Its hand moved slightly, resting on my forearm for just a moment. The touch was gentle, deliberate. Yes, it understood. We started moving. It took us 4 hours to cover 6 miles. We had to stop every 20 minutes to let Sarah check vitals, adjust IV lines, ensure we weren't causing fatal stress. The creature remained stoically silent except for occasional vocalizations that sounded like encouragement, reassuring us somehow that it could endure this. The cabin appeared through the trees like a sanctuary, small, weathered, barely visible under moss and fern. Sarah unlocked it and we carried our patient inside. "Now what?" she asked. "Now we save its life, and then I figure out how to save mine." My phone buzzed. Text from Morrison. "You have 2 hours to report to headquarters or you're terminated. Federal marshals are being notified." I turned off my phone. Over the next 3 days, Sarah and I became full-time caretakers. She stayed at the cabin while I hiked out periodically for supplies, always checking that I wasn't followed. The creature, we couldn't keep calling it, slowly improved. On the second day, Sarah noticed something remarkable. "Tom, look at this." She was examining the chest wound. "This healing rate is extraordinary. What should take weeks is happening in days. The tissue regeneration is unlike anything I've seen." The wounds were indeed closing faster than should be possible. The chest tube had already been removed. The creature was sitting up now, watching us with clear, alert eyes. "He's trying to tell me something," Sarah said. "Watch." The creature gestured toward the door, then made a sweeping motion with his hand. Outward, expansive. Then he touched his chest and held up 3 fingers, then pointed northeast. "He has a group," I said. 3 others. That direction. The creature huffed. "Affirmative. He wants us to know he has family out there, that they're waiting for him." Sarah sat down heavily. "We're not just saving one individual. We're protecting an entire population." Over those 3 days, we learned things. He could understand simple English. Not the words, maybe, but the intent behind them. He showed us how his people used plants for medicine, crushing specific leaves and roots and applying them to his wounds with careful deliberation. Some of the plants Sarah recognized, natural antibiotics and anti-inflammatories. Others she'd never seen used medicinally. On the 3rd night, as I kept watch while Sarah slept, he reached out and touched my Park Service badge. The same gesture I'd seen once before, from another ranger's story I'd dismissed as fantasy. He traced the letters, then looked at me with an expression that communicated something profound. Trust, gratitude, understanding. I pulled out my phone and showed him photos, just to see if he'd comprehend. Pictures of the Olympic forests, wildlife, mountain peaks. He studied each one with clear recognition. When I showed him a photo of logging operations, his reaction was visceral, a sharp intake of breath, a turning away, grief, maybe, or anger. They know, I said quietly. They understand what we're doing to their habitat. They've been watching us destroy their world piece by piece. That's when my phone buzzed with the message I'd been dreading. Text from Morrison. Formal termination effective immediately. Federal warrant issued for obstruction of justice. Surrender yourself within 24 hours or face arrest. This didn't have to happen, Tom. Sarah woke up, saw my face. What is it? I'm officially fired and wanted. Tom, it's okay. I knew this was the cost. The creature was watching us, understanding somehow that something had changed. He made a sound, low, mournful, and touched my hand. Comfort. This being I'd saved was trying to comfort me. We need to get you back to your family, I said. Tomorrow. Can you walk? He stood, unsteady but determined. Took 3 careful steps, then nodded. Sarah checked his vitals one final time. Medically, he shouldn't be mobile yet, but he's stable enough. If his own healing ability is as remarkable as I think, he'll continue improving. Then we move at dawn. Get him back to his territory before the federal agents close in. That night, I barely slept. I sat watching this magnificent survivor breathe, thinking about the choice I'd made. My career was over. I was facing criminal charges. My reputation would be destroyed, my pension gone, possibly jail time ahead, and I'd do it again. Because some things matter more than rules. Some lives matter more than careers. Some secrets are worth protecting with everything you have. We left the cabin at first light. The creature moved slowly but steadily, Sarah and I flanking him in case he faltered. We traveled northwest, following his gestured directions deeper into Olympics backcountry. Around 10 a.m., we heard helicopters. Federal search, Sarah said, watching the sky through gaps in the canopy. They're coordinating a grid pattern. We moved under denser cover, following game trails where overhead visibility was minimal. The creature seemed to understand the danger, moving with increased urgency, despite obvious discomfort from his healing wounds. At noon, we heard voices. Track pattern suggests 3 individuals heading northwest. Weight is considered armed and potentially irrational. My own colleagues hunting me like a fugitive. Rangers I'd trained, people I'd worked alongside for decades, now following orders to bring me in. We hid behind a massive nurse log, barely breathing. The search team passed within 50 yards, never seeing us. When their voices faded, we continued moving. The creature stopped at 2 p.m. in a small clearing beside a creek. He made a complex vocalization, loud, carrying, a specific pattern that sounded like language. We waited. 5 minutes later, an answer came from the ridge above us. Similar structure, different voice. Then another, from our left. A third, more distant. They're coming for him, Sarah whispered. His family. The creature turned to us. He reached out and touched my face, gentle, deliberate, then Sarah's. The gesture was unmistakable. Goodbye. Thank you. We'll remember. Then shapes emerged from the forest. 3 more of them, slightly smaller, more cautious but with the same impossible presence. One approached our patient carefully, examining his wounds with obvious concern. Another hung back, watching us with wary intelligence. The third, the largest, positioned himself protectively between his family and us. The dynamic was clear, gratitude mixed with appropriate caution. They understood we'd helped, but we were still human, still dangerous by association. Sarah pulled out a small bag, antibiotics, bandaging supplies, written instructions and pictures showing wound care. She held it out. The creature we'd saved took it carefully, then handed it to one of the others, the one who'd examined his wounds. A healer, perhaps. Their version of a doctor. Take care of him, Sarah said. He needs rest, clean water. The antibiotics twice daily if you understand time intervals. The creature made a soft sound. Stop. We understand enough. Then they turned, and the forest swallowed them like they'd never existed. One moment there, next moment gone. Complete, perfect silence. Sarah and I stood alone in that clearing, suddenly aware of how exposed we were. We should move, I said. Where? Tom, you're a wanted man. Where can you possibly go? Canada. Maybe. Find a place remote enough that... Ranger, wait. Stand down. 4 rangers emerged from the trees, weapons drawn but pointed safely downward. My former team, led by Ranger Jessica Martinez, someone I'd mentored 5 years ago. Jess, I said, you don't have to do this. Actually, I do. Federal warrant. I'm sorry, Tom. What I did was right. Maybe, but it was still illegal. She approached carefully, pulling out zip-tie restraints. I need you to put your hands behind your back. I complied. What else could I do? As she secured my wrists, she leaned close and whispered, we didn't see anyone else here. Just you. Understand? I met her eyes, saw the conflict there, the choice she was making, following orders while protecting what she couldn't acknowledge existed. Thank you, I whispered back. Don't thank me. You're still under arrest. Louder for the others. Subject secured. Notify dispatch. Sarah stepped forward. He needs medical attention. Those conditions are harsh. Dr. Chen, you're also under investigation. I suggest you remain silent. They led us out of the forest we'd been protecting, back toward vehicles, civilization, consequences. The interrogation room at Port Angeles Federal Building was exactly what you'd expect. Gray walls, metal table, two-way mirror, fluorescent lights that hummed with institutional indifference. I'd been sitting there for 3 hours. Finally, the door opened. Chief Morrison entered, followed by 2 federal agents and Dr. Richard Sterling. Ranger Waite, Morrison began, his voice heavy with disappointment. Do you understand the severity of your situation? I understand I saved a living creature from bleeding to death, yes. Sterling leaned forward. You obstructed scientific research. You threatened researchers. You concealed evidence of a potentially undocumented species. I prevented poachers from killing something they didn't understand. We had permits to document vocalizations, not to execute. I saw the wound pattern, Dr. Sterling. Those were kill shots, professional placement. You weren't defending yourself. You were collecting a specimen. His face reddened. That creature could redefine human evolution. The scientific value was worth more than its life. Is that what you're saying? One of the federal agents intervened. Agent Torres, according to her identification. Mr. Waite, you're facing charges of obstruction of justice, interference with federal research, and violation of direct orders. Where is the specimen? It's not a specimen, and I don't know where he is. He? Yes, he. A living being with intelligence and awareness, not an it, not a specimen. Torres exchanged glances with her partner. You're claiming this creature showed signs of human-level intelligence? I'm claiming it deserved the same ethical consideration we'd give any suffering animal, and I provided that consideration. Morrison spoke again, quieter now. Tom, you had 26 years of exemplary service. You could have handled this through proper channels, filed reports, brought in experts, like Dr. Sterling here, who wanted to turn a living, thinking being into a research project, who would have made sure that creature and its entire population lost the only advantage they have, anonymity. You don't get to make those decisions alone, Morrison said. Someone had to, and I was the only one there. The interrogation continued for hours. They wanted locations, descriptions, photographs. I gave them nothing except the coordinates where I'd found Sterling and his team. Let them search that clearing. They wouldn't find anything except old blood and disturbed vegetation. Finally, Torres leaned back. Mr. Waite, we have testimony from Dr. Sterling, corroborated by his research team. We have your own admission of interference. Even without physical evidence, we have enough to charge you. Then charge me. We're offering a deal. Full cooperation. Tell us everything you know about this creature, help us locate it, and we reduce charges to misdemeanor obstruction. Probation, community service, no jail time. I looked at Sterling, at his eager expression, at Morrison's disappointed face, at the federal agents just doing their jobs. No, Tom, Morrison started. No, I'm not helping you find them. I'm not helping you turn their lives into a circus. Charge me with whatever you want. I'll take my chances with a jury. Torres closed her folder. Then you're looking at 18 months minimum. Federal facility, permanent criminal record. I understand. For what? To protect something you can't even prove exists? I met her eyes. To protect something I know deserves to exist without human interference. Without cameras and researchers and tourists and hunters. They've survived thousands of years by staying hidden. Who am I to take that away? The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Morrison spoke, voice rough with emotion. Get him processed. Federal custody pending trial. As they led me away, Sterling called after me. You're a fool, Waite. History will prove me right. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll sleep at night. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Federal prosecutors presented their case: obstruction of justice, interference with scientific research, violation of direct orders. Dr. Mao. Sterling testified dramatically about the specimen of the century that I'd helped escape. My former colleagues testified about my radio silence and failure to follow protocol. Sarah Chen was charged as an accessory. She fought it harder than I did, maintaining throughout that she'd treated an unknown injured animal and nothing more. Eventually, charges against her were reduced to a fine and probation. She lost her veterinary license for 6 months. I refused to testify in my own defense. My lawyer was furious, but what could I say? That yes, I'd obstructed their investigation, and yes, I'd do it again? That some discoveries should remain undiscovered? The jury deliberated for 2 days. Guilty on all counts. 18 months in federal prison, loss of pension, permanent termination from Park Service. I served 14 months, released early for good behavior. When I walked out of FCI Sheridan on a gray November morning, Sarah was waiting. "You look terrible," she said. "Prison food, you look good though. License reinstated last month. I'm working with wildlife rescue now. Nothing too exotic, just standard bears and cougars." "No unusual patients?" She smiled slightly. "None that I'd tell a convicted felon about." I moved to a cabin outside Port Angeles. Bought cheap, barely running water. No electricity except what I could generate with solar panels. Off-grid living. I took odd jobs: trail maintenance, forestry consulting, wilderness guide work for tourists who didn't care about my record. And I waited. 6 months after my release, I was cutting firewood when I heard a sound from the tree line. A vocalization, specific pattern, familiar. I turned slowly. He was there, the one I'd saved, standing at the edge of my property, barely visible in the dappled shade. His wounds had healed completely. I could see that even from 50 feet away. He looked healthy, strong. He raised one hand, a gesture of acknowledgement, then placed something on a stump at the forest edge. Then he stepped back into the trees and vanished. I walked over. It was a stone, shaped by intentional work into something almost circular, carved into its surface with crude but deliberate marks. A 5-pointed star, the center of my park ranger badge, and below it, scratches that might have been meant to represent a human figure. A thank you, rendered in stone because it was the only medium that would last. I kept that stone. Still have it. When documentary crews and cryptozoologists occasionally track me down, asking about what really happened that day in the Ho, I show them nothing, tell them nothing, let them speculate. Dr. Sterling published his account of the encounter. Most of the scientific community dismissed it. No physical evidence, no body, no photographs that couldn't be explained as misidentification or hoax. His reputation suffered more than mine did. Jessica Martinez made senior ranger last year. She still works Olympic. Once, on a supply run into Port Angeles, we crossed paths. She nodded once, brief acknowledgement, and kept walking, understanding between us that needed no words. The forest keeps its secrets. The Olympics still have spaces where humans rarely go, where creatures can live, hidden and undisturbed, protected not by laws but by simple human decency. I lost my career, my reputation, my pension, 14 months of freedom, and I'd do it again tomorrow, because there are still places in this world where the unknown deserves to remain unknown, where the greatest act of conservation is simply choosing not to reveal what you found, where the only proof that matters is a stone on my mantle, carved by hands that shouldn't exist.